Hello, this is Breakfast with Susanna Reid and Charlie State.
An investigation uncovers appalling examples of the treatment given to older people who need help at home. Morning, it's Friday, March the 16th.
Also ahead, more detail.
And it was an emotional end to this series of MasterChef last night. We're going to be meeting the winner.
Plus, Carol's out and about with the weather. Carol, thank you very much.
Good morning. First on main news this morning, shocking standards of investigators at the consumer organisation Which.
Their report claims vulnerable people were unable to reach food while others were left with soiled bedclothes. More than 900 people were questioned and some kept diaries of their treatment.
The American soldier accused of killing 16 Afghan civilians was unfit to do a fourth tour of duty in a war zone, according to his lawyer. John Henry Brown says the man, who hasn't been named, had been injured while serving in Iraq. Despite calls for him to be tried in Afghanistan, the soldier has been flown to Kuwait, where he's being held at a US military facility. Now, David Cameron is flying back to the UK after his three-day visit to America. Downing Street. At least 3,000 people in England and Wales with multiple sclerosis could benefit from the world's first pill for the condition. The National...
And one other story for you. A bear from darkest Peru who eats marmalade sandwiches has been voted Britain's best animated character of all time. This is the time now. You're watching Breakfast from BBC News. Our main stories this morning. Time for a look at the weather now. Carol is out and about doing some rather...
Carol, thank you. That is a lovely moment of peace in the middle of a busy morning. 19 minutes past 6. If you've drunk a beer recently, did you notice something different? Some big brands have started weakening their brew to save on tax ahead of a duty rise in next week's budget.
The government says there's a public to lower alcohol drinks, but brewers say they're putting too much pressure on the industry. John Moylan has more.
Time now, though, to get the news where you are. We'll see you in a moment.
And avoid it if you have to, because you want to see it later.
Yeah, judges Greg Wallace and John Torode are going to be in. We can say their names with no worry of being
First, though,
criticised.
our main story this morning, the standards of care provided for older people in their homes in the UK has been labelled shocking and disgraceful by a consumer group.
We're 6:39. In a week when we heard youth unemployment in the UK has risen to well over 1 million, the Labour leader Ed Miliband will unveil what he's calling a real jobs guarantee for young people at his party's youth conference in Coventry this morning.
He's also expected to use this speech to tell voters more about himself, as our political correspondent Ian Watson explains. 19
Tell me about it. I was out running yesterday. What did I choose yesterday for? To do that big long run?
That's why I didn't run yesterday.
It was too hot. That was the reason, was it? Now, you may not be a games fan, but you'll have heard of Grand Theft Auto and Call of Duty. Penny's here to talk about the success of the gaming industry. Morning, Penny.
Good morning. And it is hugely successful for the UK's coffers. Apparently it nets us about £30 billion. It's incredible.
Nice technique there. Good.
It's going to stand you in good stead, Penny. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Coming up on the programme this morning, a child may be your bundle of joy.
Time now is 13 minutes past 7. Coming up on the programme today, baby
By
champing at the bitches.
Cannot wait any longer.
Back in half an hour with those ticket sales. One company trying to make it fairer in the business for people buying secondary tickets.
OK, Penny, thank you very much.
For most of us, the idea of sharing our home with 7 or 8 family members may sound daunting, but for many people in Britain, it is now the norm. Research
suggests the high cost of living is pushing families back in time, and the number of households with several generations all under one roof could exceed Victorian-era levels by the year 2030. Breakfast Tim Muffet is in Bristol for...
Time now, though, to get the news where you are. See you in a moment. You're watching Breakfast with Charlie State and Susanna Reid.
Our main story this morning, the standards of care provided for older people in their homes in the UK has been labelled shocking and disgraceful by a consumer group.
Which found case. Our main stories this morning, also coming up on the programme this morning, poor houses, leech therapy and turtle.
And that's it for the business for now. And I wouldn't pay $500 to see Madonna. I'd pay £6.
How much? You don't want to see Madonna?
I'd love to see Madonna, but not 500 quid.
OK. Now we know.
She sells enough tickets, Penny, I think. She's all right.
Thanks, Penny.
7 minutes to 8. It's a world away from millionaire managers in the Premier League, but more than 1 million people dedicate their time and energy to coaching sport in the UK.
And despite the fact that it can involve giving up your weeknights, your weekends, 3/4 of them do it for nothing. Mike Bushel's been to see some of the hard-working coaches who rarely get the recognition they deserve, but do get much of the stick.
To talk to you. Thank you so much for coming in. 8:13, still to come on Breakfast this morning. Let's get the weather forecast now with Carol. Stay dry. 17 minutes past 8.
For most of us, the idea of sharing our home with 7, maybe 8 family members would sound rather daunting. But for many people in Britain, it's now the norm.
Yes, research suggests the high cost of living is pushing families back in time. And the number of households with several generations all under one roof could exceed Victorian-era levels by 2030. So Breakfast's Tim Muffet has gone to Bristol this morning.
Very interesting. And Granny wasn't forced in it by the BBC.
No,
we can confirm.
Although,
she did it voluntarily.
Moving your grandparents in may be an answer to the next conundrum we're discussing on Breakfast this morning. Babies, maybe a bundle of joy. They come with a hefty price tag. Nappies, clothes, prams, cots, childcare. Costs can soon mount up.
A recent survey by the Money Advice Service suggests parents often don't budget properly before having a child and can end up paying as much as £5,000 more than they were expecting.
A new online calculator could help. Here to discuss this, Paul Lewis. Do people, when they're having a baby, plan financially for it, or are they just in a kind of baby haze?
In year one, in the things you buy before and during year one. For many parents, that they really don't have this amount of spare cash.
And Sarah, is there an instinct which is that, I don't mind saying, but not hold it?
She doesn't let it out of her sight, unsurprisingly. Time now to get the news where you are. See you in a moment.
Everyone loves Paddington Bear. He's fantastic.
You can't really argue with that.
Can't argue with it, no.
British Animation Awards were held last night. Those are the main stories this morning. Here's what's coming up later on in the programme.
Across the weekend.
Now, after spending last year dancing his heart out under the glitter ball, Jason Donovan has stored away his flashy costumes and he's back doing what he loves most.
The singer has a new album inspired by his Strictly experience called Sign of Your Love. Jason's here with us in just a moment. First, though, let's have a look at him performing Every Time We Say Goodbye.
Yeah.
Strictly.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Is that what you wanted? You listen to all that music? And currently Michael Bublé.
Michael Bublé as well, who does that stuff. You're stepping into a... Did you feel a bit like that? You're sort of stepping into a...
What do you feel now about putting that aside? And, there will be a new... lot announced at some stage over the next couple of months.
Okay, so you're looking for the stuff.
Will be sort of segregated, so we have a particular group and others don't.
It's a world away from millionaire managers in the Premier League, but more than 1 million people dedicate their time and energy to coaching sport in the UK.
And despite the fact that it can involve giving up weeknights and weekends, of course, 3/4 of them do it for nothing. Mike Bushel's been to see some of the hard-working coaches who rarely get the recognition they deserve, but do get much of the stick.
Nicola Benedetti, holding it. Nicola, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
It's got a name, hasn't it?
Yes, it's called the Gary L. Strad, made by Stradivarius in 1717.
OK, we're going to talk about it in just a moment. Viewers may notice you don't have a bow with you.
And although they're made by the same maker, they're both Stradivarius violins. He made every single violin extremely differently and in very different...
Time when, the first time you held the school violin or whatever it was you did?
So much. We're going to be joined by this year's MasterChef winner and the show's Good Cop, Bad Cop judges, Greg Wallace and John Turode, in just a moment.
First, though, here's a last quick look at what's happening where you are. Welcome back. Last night, after 8 weeks of tough competition, the final 3 contestants of this year's battled it out in the final challenge.
And as ever, the show's judge is Greg Wallace. That's all from us. Join us tomorrow, 6 o'clock. We'll leave you with one last look at the scene at the London Wetland Centre this morning. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.